Hey everybody, just wanted to put out a quick disclaimer before this video starts. This is mostly just my experiences with the Indiana Jones video games that I played growing up. So it's not every Indiana Jones video game that has existed. So games like Fate of Atlantis are not on here. I did play it growing up, but I mostly mention it that it is featured in one of the games I talk about in this video. Just wanted to put that out there because it's less of like a video essay type video going over every Indiana Jones video game and the entire history of it, and more of just my history with Indiana Jones video games and just kind of my origins with Indiana Jones in general. So with that out of the way, please like and subscribe and share the video around if you liked it. It helps out a ton. I put a lot of time and effort into this video. I'm probably most proud of this video more than any of the other ones, so stay tuned for a fun one, and I'll see you guys later. Bye. Ever since I was a wee lad, I have been a massive fan of Indiana Jones. I was introduced to the franchise by my father after being very curious about the poster for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I watched the movies endlessly and even sported my own Indy fedora. I was in an Indiana Jones trance, gobbling up any and all Indiana Jones media I could get my hands on. One thing that I was also very drawn to at a young age was video games. And luckily for me, around the time I was getting into Indiana Jones, two major games were right around the corner, the first being LEGO Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures. Being a kid growing up in the early 2000s, LEGO video games were the hot ticket item. LEGO Star Wars 1 and 2 were some of the most celebrated games at the time, and LucasArts and TT Games weren't stopping there as they released LEGO Indiana Jones in summer 2008. It was lightning in a bottle for my interest in Indiana Jones that summer. A brand new movie, video games, and the introduction of the original trilogy from my father. I was primed to be an Indiana Jones fan for life. But we talk video games on this channel, so let's hop into LEGO Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures. LEGO Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures is a very fun take on the first three Indiana Jones adventures, and I do say first three because despite what people want to believe, there are 5 Indiana Jones movies total. No Dial of Destiny slander will be accepted here, as that movie fucking rocks. At LEGO Indiana Jones, you play through Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade. And in typical LEGO format, there's plenty of humor sprinkled into the plots of these films. The game plays extremely similarly to the previous TT Games outings at the time, LEGO Star Wars 1 and 2, but with added gameplay elements and alterations to interacting with your environment, as this game added phobia features for characters that have fear of bugs, rats, and of course, snakes. This LEGO game added the ability of being able to pick up objects to use as weapons, such as spears, chairs, and bottles, and etc. Being able to traverse through levels inspired by the greatest moments of the movies is a treat and makes for an incredible time. My favorite level just happens to be the intro to Raiders. Going through the jungle and eventually the Temple of the Golden Idol is the perfect LEGO video game level. LEGO Indiana Jones is still an incredibly fun video game to experience even after getting the masterpiece that is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which we'll be getting to later in the video. I still find myself heading back to LEGO Indy for a fun, relaxing romp through the world of Indiana Jones. I highly recommend you check this one out if you haven't already. It is readily available on PC and Xbox Series X and S through backwards compatibility. I hope one day this one gets a remaster treatment or a proper sequel because LEGO Indy 2 is not so great. A year after LEGO Indy and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull's release, I was still very much in love with Indiana Jones. Despite Kingdom of the Crystal Skull being underwhelming even as a kid, I still understood it was lacking the quality of the 3 films before it. There was one last indie project to come the following summer, and that was Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. Little did I know this would be the last of Indiana Jones anything for the next 15 years. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings is a very intriguing video game and has a very complicated history, as there are multiple versions made by different development teams, with only one of the teams games being released, and that will be the Wii, PS2, DS, and PSP version developed by Artificial Minded Movement, and the PSP version being developed by Amaze Entertainment. My first experience with Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings was the Wii version, but the footage shown is of the PS5 port of the game from the PS2. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings is by no means a masterpiece, but I also believe the game is not as bad as it is talked about. I like to think of it as Indiana Jones junk food. Is the food good for me? Probably not, but damn it, it tastes really good. As a kid, I absolutely adored this game, but in modern times, I can't help but be sad for what we missed with the LucasArts internally developed version of the Indiana Jones and Staff of Kings. It was poised to be a next-gen Indiana Jones experience on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 with an advanced physics engine that would later be used for Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Footage of this version of the Staff of Kings exists and makes you truly wonder what an amazing game this could have been had LucasArts remained a studio. My hot take is that this game probably would have eaten Uncharted's lunch and had it cross the finish line. But that time has long passed, and we were left with the vastly inferior Staff of Kings for the Wii, PS2, DS, and PSP. I'm much older and see the flaws in the Staff of Kings, such as a disjointed story, terrible bugs, very poor enemy AI, and poor graphics. I also see the great ideas the Staff of Kings has hidden beneath the ugliness. For starters, the soundtrack is pretty great, and I'm not just talking about the reused songs from the movies, those are obviously great, but there are also very well done pieces created specifically for the game, and if you pay attention to the game's credits, you may recognize the composer as none other than Gordy Habb, the genius behind EA's latest Jedi games, and of course Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. The gameplay also has some pretty interesting ideas in some parts of the journey, such as the mountain trek in the Nepal section of the game, where you must warm up at campfires to regain health from the cold and keep Indy from freezing to death. This game has some pretty fun gameplay elements, such as using the environment to take out enemies and using the whip in combat to disarm and pull enemies towards you for a devastating blow. The overall concept for the game's story is very interesting, but it is held back by the hardware it was released on, with the story being disjointed and taking a backseat to the gameplay, which is fine for most games, but Indy needs a very compelling narrative, and that's something that's lacking from this game. The Wii and PS2 versions of the game, which I have most experience with, are also different in terms of content. The Wii version of Staff of Kings has a narrated tutorial, better visuals, and a co-op mode that I have little to no experience with. And it also includes the fantastic Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis game as an extra unlockable for collecting certain in-game items. The Wii version is controlled by motion controls and sports extra combat moves not seen in the PS2 version, such as being able to hit enemies lying on the ground. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings is very far from perfect, but it is a game I find a lot of enjoyment in. Whether that be from nostalgia or just pure dumb fun, I really like most things the game has to offer. I only wish we ended up with the original plan for the game from LucasArts, because there's not a lot of fortune and glory with this one. After the Staff of Kings was released, it would be the last Indiana Jones content before the franchise would go dormant for 16 years. Many years went by, and my love for Indiana Jones remained, even if it was mostly in the background of my mind for most of my teenage years. Post-high school, my love of Indiana Jones resurfaced with growing rumors that Indy would be making a return to the big screen. I was very excited at the prospect of a new Indiana Jones adventure, and in 2021, a shocking announcement was made. Bethesda had acquired the license to Indiana Jones and handed the development of the franchise to Machine Games, most known for their work on the Wolfenstein series. And the other cool reveal was that Todd Howard of Fallout and the Elder Scrolls fame would be in the executive producer chair. This was very exciting, as nothing of Dial of Destiny had come to light yet. Indy was finally back. After the announcement of a brand new Indy adventure, there would still be a long wait until we saw anything of what would become Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I was left wanting more, so I was seeking out a game I knew about, but never got around to playing. That game was none other than Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. The Emperor's Tomb is a pretty great video game with some wild ideas in the back half of the story, mostly being Indy fighting ghosts with a magical boomerang thing. This is the game the Staff of Kings wanted to be, but could not achieve. Making this video, I couldn't find tons of information on the game's development, but the game was developed by The Collective, who had previously worked on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer video game, in which the Emperor's Tomb would use the same game engine. The Collective also went on to make the very great game adaptation of Star Wars Episode III Revenge of the Sith. The Emperor's Tomb serves as a prequel to the original trilogy, taking place right before Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. The game is more akin to the Tomb Raider series and has pretty fun gameplay, but where the game is lacking is the writing. The dialogue is poor, and the story isn't the most interesting in the world. Indy's character is also poorly translated in this game. While this adventure does take place before Indy's character arc in the Temple of Doom, Indy still feels off somehow. He's kind of a huge douche compared to how he is in the Temple of Doom. This is where the Emperor's Tomb feels similar to the Staff of Kings. Everything surrounding the story is Indiana Jones in aesthetic, but nothing truly has the heart that even something like the LEGO games capture. The soundtrack is also lacking in some places. Some tracks are really great and capture the same exotic nature that the Temple of Doom soundtrack had, but others are lacking that mystique and charm that the movies and even the Staff of Kings and later on the Great Circles have. The Emperor's Tomb has some pretty stellar combat. I really love the gruff hand-to-hand combat this game has on offer. It captures the scrappy nature of Indy's combat, and even though this game is from 2003, it still feels pretty fresh and satisfying to play, making this game a joy to go back to. Had this been made a few years later with a more sophisticated game engine, I feel The Emperor's Tomb could have been more than just a pretty good game. The game controls pretty well for a third-person action-adventure game from the early 2000s. It feels almost modern in some aspects. Everything but the shooting feels pretty great, and I like that the whip is an equipable item instead of being bound to a button press. This game also has my favorite healing mechanic, the trusty water bottle. Drinking water to heal bullet wounds is hilarious and never gets old. Indy had the cup of life way before his adventure with his father. All in all, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb is a pretty good video game that I find myself coming back to years later, but it still isn't the best version we would receive in the gaming space, as the Great Circle was right around the corner. About a year after I played the Emperor's Tomb, more info would be released about Indy's next cinematic outing. James Gold was taking the director's chair, and Harrison Ford would return as Indiana Jones one last time. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny received its first trailer towards the end of 2022 and catapulted my excitement to new highs. I was ready for a more down-to-earth story about Indy at the end of his career. Dial of Destiny was released in 2023 to mixed reception, even though it debuted with a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, and most Indy fans truly loved the film. This felt like a movie that was made with care for the character and the heart that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was lacking. Was it as good as the original 3 movies? No, I don't think it could have ever reached that point. But it is an adventure that reached for that same pedigree and made for a great heartfelt time. There was one more Indy adventure not heard from in a while, and that is the project that Machine Games and Bethesda were cooking for some time leading up to Indy's final cinematic adventure. In early 2024, Xbox and Bethesda revealed Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and they were taking Indy into first-person gameplay. The first details were released about the game and it looked phenomenal, but I must say, I wasn't so sure about Indy in first person. Machine Games are most known for first-person gameplay, but I was assuming that they would do what Respawn did with the Jedi series of games and switch to third person. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt better about the direction they were going in. Machine Games has never let me down. Then again, I never played the seemingly atrocious Wolfenstein Youngblood. It was a long summer and fall as Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was finally released in December 2024. The game was met with major praise as this was finally the Indiana Jones game that fans had been waiting for almost 2 decades. The game was spectacular and was Indiana Jones at his best. This game truly feels like one of the movies and captured Indiana Jones with all the heart and soul of the films. Troy Baker voiced Indiana Jones and did the best job out of anybody to take on the role in a game. The voice acting, the music from Gordy Habb, the cinematography, and the immersive gameplay put you in the shoes of Indiana Jones like never before. The story was also fantastic and truly felt like what I had been wanting all along from Indiana Jones games. The game features excellent level design, with most places you are exploring being interconnected maps with plenty of mysteries and even side quests that all connect into the main plot. Every environment felt meticulously crafted and treated with care for the main course of the game, which is finding out the mystery behind the Great Circle. The story is phenomenal and the characters are all great and memorable, but the gameplay is next level amazing. Being able to solve meticulous puzzles and explore in these environments in first person feels like something that was always meant to be for the intrepid explorer. Combat is so engaging in first person, more than I ever thought it would be. In true indie fashion, you can use objects in the environment as weapons and use your whip to pull enemies in for devastating blows or just give them a good strike. What Indy is most known for is his knowledge and problem solving. So to have very well thought out puzzles and riddles feels right at home, as the majority of gameplay is about exploring your surroundings and gathering clues about where to look next. This is Indy at his core, and he's never felt better. Another really great addition to this game is disguises. Indy could gather outfits to help him blend in and get to areas he otherwise couldn't. This makes getting around hostile environments a breeze and leads to fun interactions with NPCs. The puzzle design is phenomenal, with some truly great and fun solutions. My personal favorite is in the Vatican, where you need to use a bottle of wine to solve a puzzle involving a mural of Jesus on the cross. There are also mini puzzles that you can find to get into chests scattered around the map that give you access to crucial notes and money that lets you purchase new adventure books, which give you new abilities and upgrades to Indy's health and carrying capacity. My favorite part of the Great Circle has to be the phenomenal cinematography that captures the feel Douglas Slocum gave the original 3 films. This game truly captures the heart and essence of Indiana Jones that has been missing from his other video game outings. I hope in the future, after a potential Wolfenstein 3, which seems to be next for Machine Games, that they can get another crack at Indiana Jones, as they truly understand what makes Indy special and can make an even better game with the bones of what makes the Great Circle truly special. Indiana Jones has a bright future ahead. With a new comic series on the way from Marvel Comics, and hopefully more than that, the video game space is begging for even more interpretations of Indiana Jones. Hopefully he would no longer be a relic of the past waiting to be dug up. Until then, I can die knowing that I have got to experience one of the greatest franchises of all time in my favorite medium of entertainment. Until the next adventure, take care.